Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Win Government Contract, the podcast. So glad to have all of you here joining us. Some of you are joining us live, some of you are joining us on replay. Either way, it's good to see you here. I promise you today, what we're going to talk about is going to change how you do relationships and how you do teaming partnerships in the government contracting marketplace. I've got some resources I'm going to be giving to you, some website we're going to be visiting, and I've got some actual pricing models that we're going to be going through today. Now, just to kind of set the tone a little bit, we are doing this here the day after the election. So some of you might be feeling a little bit joyous, and some of you might be feeling a little bit emotional. Um, But here's the thing about government contracting. It doesn't matter if you are um, one political party or the other, right? It doesn't matter if you are blue or if you are red. What matters, it doesn't matter if you are purple, right? What matters in the government contracting marketplace is green. And so green, it's about the money. It's about how do you access contracting opportunities regardless of which party is in office. And that's what we're here to talk about. How to set up pricing structure with your teaming partners and how to do that in a fair manner so that you can win more contracts. You need teaming partners to succeed in the government market. 70% of government contracting requires two or more companies to work together. So it's naturally, instinctively inherent to this industry that companies team and work together. So in today's podcast, we will be talking about how to team, how to leverage pricing, your pricing model so that it is a fair model so that you and your teaming partners can both win and succeed together. So that's what we're going to be talking about. My name is Abraham. I am your host. If you're joining us for the first time, or if you're joining us as a repeat audience member of our community here, please let us know where you're joining us from. Put in your business name and put in there where you're located, what city you're located and where you're joining us from. That would be awesome. So with that, we're going to dive into today's content here, and we're going to be talking about how to set up teaming pricing models for your teaming partners so that you can actually win more government contracts working collectively in a manner in that way there. I have a lot of goodies to give out to you. I've got some websites that we're going to be sharing with you. We've got two pricing model that I will be sharing with you as well so that you can use that to help structure your pricing in the government contracting industry. To kind of get going, I'm going to share my screen here and we will get going. All right. So this is some of our agenda today. We're going to be talking about two websites. We're going to be talking about revenue sharing model for you and your teaming partners. We're going to talk about developing a pricing model for your product and services. We'll talk a little about what's the difference between subprime, teaming, JV, and mentor project, and why you need a teaming partner in this industry here. So to kind of get things going, I'm going to start off by discussing what are the different types of partnerships that you can have in the government market itself. And today's class is not about JV teaming, is not about joint venture, mentor project. I'm doing a quick review of this here, and then we're going to go into the pricing side, which is really the key of what we're going to be talking about today. But there are different types of relationship that you need in the government market, right? You as the vendor, you're in the middle here. The red circles, these are relationships you need to have in the government market. End users, program managers, directors. You need a relationship with the contracting office, whether it's GSA, a contracting officer, procurement officer, the buying agent, doesn't matter what they're called. And then you also need a relationship with this bottom right here, the small business advocates. Sometimes they're called the OSTRBU, sometimes they're called the SABU, sometimes they're called the OSBP, they're small business specialists. They go by many different titles. But what we're going to be talking about today is your relationship as the vendor. You need relationships with these blue circles here, and relationship with other small businesses, which are your team partners, your subcontractors. relationships with other large companies, which are your teaming partners and potentially your subcontractors as well. And then your capture team, which is your team of professionals, your proposal writer, your cost estimator, your legal team, your compliance officer, all of your teaming partners, um, or professional partners that helps you in the government market. Our main focus today is we're going to talk about relationship with large and small businesses, because these are your teaming partners to help you fulfill the relationships and the obligations you have to the red circles here. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Dive in. I'm going to talk about when most people get into the government market, they want to be the prime and they want to go to the agency. And sometimes you have some subcontractors. This is a good strategy if you are a strong, been in business for 20 years. If you are a large company, this is the best strategy to get started, because you have the past performances, you have the capability to do work directly with the government. This is not the best strategy if you're new, or if you're a small business starting off in the government market, or if you're newer in the government, or newer as a business itself. The other strategy is this here, right? You work as a subcontractor to the prime. So this is one way of how you get started, by being a subcontractor to a prime. And then you might be a tier 1 sub, and you have tier 2 subs, and there's a prime that have already won the contract with the agency. And then in some scenario, you are a tier 2 sub to the prime to the agency. So these are different ways of how you work in the government market. But I'm going to go ahead and dive a little deeper and talk about the nature of some of these relationships. So when you come into the government market, you can function as a prime, right? Everybody wants to be the prime, and being the prime is great. And then sometimes you're the sub to a prime. And then in some scenarios, when the two companies come and work, when two or more companies come to work together, it's called a teaming partnership. And then in some scenario, you actually form a new company, and that's called a joint venture. When you are working together, either as teaming partners or a joint venture, you want to have the proper pricing model so that your pricing is fair to your teaming partners, so they want to work with you long term. If you make all the money and they don't make any money, they might be with you on one project, but guess what? They're not going to want to work with you long term, because you made all the money and you squeezed them, and they barely had enough money to pay their team and their employees and so forth. So using some of the pricing model we're going to be talking about here today will allow you to properly consider all of your teaming partners. First, consider your own pricing, and then consider your teaming partners' pricing. So we're going to be talking about teaming and joint venture and how to do that pricing. Now, in some scenario, if in a joint venture, you have a mentor protege relationship with a large company. And so in this situation, in some joint venture, you need to have a mentor protege agreement in place so that there's no affiliation. That's a whole separate class. But so this gives you a quick perspective, right? Teaming and joint venture. In a teaming partnership, one company A acts as the prime, and then company B acts as the sub, right? And so you could be A or you could be B, whether you're the prime or the sub, it doesn't matter. It depends on the opportunity, depends on who's going to lead to be the best candidate for winning that contract. Now, in the joint venture, the new co, right? The new co is the prime. And then company A and company B are the partners, or more so, subcontractors to the new co. So company A, company B forms a new company, the new co JV. And so the new co JV is the prime, and company A and B support the work. And again, we have a class that goes into layers and layers and details of why you need to do a joint venture, with the benefits and how to set all this up. Today, I want to give you the framework of this model so that when we go to pricing, you understand that it comes back to address teaming and joint venture pricing strategy here. So let's go into a little bit deeper. The first thing I want to do is I want to show you two quick websites in terms of how to how to legally spy on your competitors. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there again because I want to get into the pricing structure, the pricing model itself. But all this here is a framework so that when we get to that, it makes total sense to you. First website, and my show producer is going to put it on the web and into the chat, is gsaadvantage.gov. And when you come in here, if you are in the service industry, if you are in the product industry, you can just choose that. And then I'm going to put in, you can put in here keywords, you can put in here NAICS code. I'm going to put in here 236220. So this is the construction management NAICS code. And it's going to pull up all these different construction companies. And I'm just going to choose one. So Unicare Building Maintenance. And then when I come here, I'm going to go to their pricing list, right? And so this is how you can look at your competitors and look at the pricing. And then you can say, okay, how are my pricing as it relates back to my competitors? So a janitor lead is $34. A janitor itself is $31 an hour. Now, depending on what year this is, so they didn't put the year, they just put year. Typically, you put year 2024, 25, 2025, 26, and so forth. But they just put year 1, year 2. But that's kind of understood between GSA and so forth. And so if I have a HVAC journeyman, it's 111 an hour. HVAC master tech, 150. This dollar amount here, this is your billing rate to the government. You're not paying your HVAC journeyman $111 an hour. This is the amount you're billing the government, and you're paying. We're gonna look at a pricing example of what you should pay your HVAC person in a second. So this is one website. Use this here to help you establish your pricing in terms of your competitors' pricing. If you are a subcontractor and you want to see what your prime is billing the government, you can see exactly that if you are a HVAC company and you're a sub to a prime, you can quickly see, oh, they're billing the government approximately $111 an hour. Now, they cannot bill the government higher than 111. They can always bill the government lower than 111. So they might be billing the government instead of 111, they might be billing the government 101 or $95 an hour. So you can sell lower than your published rates with GSA. You cannot sell higher than your published rate with GSA. But you have a rough idea. So if you know that if you are a master tech, HVAC master tech, and the prime is billing the government approximately 150, that means you have more room to be a subcontractor. Maybe you might bill them, 85, 90 an hour. So you have more room to build your pricing with the prime itself if you're a subcontractor. So this is one website. Let's look at another website. This is website. My show producer is going to put the website on this site here. This is buy.gsa.gov/pricing. This is another website where you can legally spy on your competitors' pricing. This here has to do more with services. So I'm going to put in here a labor category. I'm going to put in here since we're looking at janitor earlier, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to put in janitor here. So janitor ranges from $21.72 an hour all the way to about 41 and 66 here. The average is 34. So if I'm looking at this person here, the janitor, their pricing is $31.52. So they're kind of close, exactly close to the average here. So that's the average billable rate to the government. Again, this 31 here is the average. So now you can say, okay, if I'm a janitor company, how's my pricing compared to other company that's out there? Am I close? Am I competitive, or am I on the $41 an hour, or am I on the $21 an hour? If you're on the $21 an hour, I don't know if you're going to make any money. You're going to have to pay your service team, janitorial team, maybe $10 an hour, and you're not going to be able to keep them long term because you're underpaying them in terms of not livable wage. So you have to consider your competitors' pricing, and then you also have to consider your location and what you need to do to recruit. But this is what's going on, right? So now, if I'm going to figure out, okay, uh, how am I going to build the government? How do I establish my pricing so I can build the government? So I'm going to use this link here. So this link here, first, I'm going to use the simple model here. Now, this site, my show producer is going to put the link in the chat. And so go ahead and click on it so that you can use it for yourself. Now, when you come onto this page here, this pricing model here, don't ask for permission to edit this here, because this is my template that's made available to you. When you come on here, what you want to do is you want to click on File, and you want to click Make a Copy. And then when you make a copy, then you can edit it and you can use it however you want to. So that's what you want to do with this sheet here. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to work with come in here, and I'm going to put in here, I'm going to take out these two colors and I'm going to highlight just one color so that you can see. So I'm going to use this as an example here. I'm going to use this here. So I'm going to highlight this color so that we can all see. And instead of a voice specialist, I'm going to call this a janitor. Now, my suggestion is don't call your janitor. Call them a facility technician, because facility technician seems like a better title, and you can actually charge a premium, right? The optics is a little bit better. But for this example, we're just going to go with janitor because, and then we're going to go with 1912. Now, 1912 is considered full-time equivalent, FTE, full-time equivalent. 2,080 hours is normal hours. Now, how we got to 1912 is we deduct 2 weeks of vacation, which is 80 hours, and we deduct 11 federal holidays, which is 88 hours. And so that's how we get to 1912. Now, in the personnel only here, it actually breaks it down here, right? 88 federal holidays, 2 weeks of vacation, 1912. So that's kind of how we got here. So let's come back to here. This is the more simple model here. So my janitor, I'm going to pay them 1912. My hourly rate is not sure exactly what this hourly rate is, right? So what I have to do is I have to go to industry norm. Now, some of you understand how to research, but I'm just going to use Glassdoor as, you can use salary.com, you can use Glassdoor. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to salary. I'm going to put in here janitor. And assuming that this person is going to be doing work in Washington, D.C., I'm going to just do a quick comparison. So on the low end is 39,000. On the high end is 60. So 60,000 a year is on the, is probably what you need, especially Washington, D.C., right? You're going to have to pay someone this year so that you can keep them long term, so you don't have a high turnover. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to take 60,000, right? I'm going to break that down. Let me exit out of this here so that I can use my calculator. So I'm going to take 60,000. I'm going to divide that by 2080. 2080 is the hours I'm actually paying my employee. 1912 is the billable hours I'm billing the government. So they're two different numbers. So 2080 is the total hours, because even if when my employee is on vacation, I start to pay them the hourly rate. When my employee is on sick leave or federal holidays, when they're not working, I can't bill the government, but I still have to pay them because they're working full time for me. So based upon this, sir, the hourly rate that I'm paying my employee is $28.84. That's what I have to pay my person on an hourly basis. Now, if it's 39, so 28 is at the 60. Now, if it's 39,000, let's look at the low end, right? 2080. So, oh, wrong. 39,000. 1, 2, 3. Divided by 2080 hours. So that's $18.75. So it's either $28 an hour or $18 an hour, depending on where you want to fall. So coming back to my pricing model here, I'm going to say I'm going to pay them somewhere about $27 an hour. So I'm gonna pay my person. Let me take this orange out so that it doesn't. So we're just tracking the yellow here. So I'm gonna pay this person $27 an hour. I have fringe costs. We have a deeper class because on pricing, and so today this is a good overview. Fringe has to do with your vacation time, has to do with your health, your insurance, your benefits, and so forth. That's your fringe. Collectively, all your fringe, and then you have some overhead. Overhead could be uniforms. Overhead could be laptops. Could be office space that you need to provide to keep this person. If you're going to hire this person, direct overhead tied to the person itself. And then you have, G&A, general administrative costs. Then you have your net profit. So I'm paying the person $27 an hour, but I'm billing the government $51 an hour. If we come back to our GSA rate here, $41 is on the high end. So now I know that I am too high. I can't be competitive because if I'm billing the government 51, I'm not going to win, because the highest that somebody is billing the government here is only 41. So I need to be more closer to the 41. That presents a dilemma. So now I need to say, okay, do I need to pay my person $22 an hour? At $22 an hour, I am billing the government 41. So I'm more close on the higher end, but more competitive. It might be where I need to adjust my net profit. Instead of net profit 15%, I might need to do net profit of 10%. So now I'm billing the government $39 an hour. So that's kind of how you do your pricing here. I do have a personnel only model here. And then in the personnel, we actually break down very specific in terms of holidays, sick leave, vacation, workers' comp, federal unemployment, FICA, SUDA, 401k matching, medical and dental, EAP, employee assistance program, life insurance, and payroll, and so forth, right? So anything in the yellow here, you can tweak around a little bit. Your G&A is 12%, your net profit is 10%. So if this is my scenario here, I'm going to say this is my janitor. And I'm going to pay my janitor $22 an hour. That means the annual is $45,000. And then I'm going to bill the government. I'm going to pay my employee $22 an hour. I'm going to bill the government $37 an hour. So that's kind of how you use this here. And then you can add as many labor categories as you want. And then you can have your base year down here. So this is your pricing model. If you're going to go at it by yourself, And even if you're going it by yourself, or if you're going it with your teaming partner, you still want to use this sheet to get all the specific amount. Now I'm going to shift gears. We're going to shift gears to, if you're doing it with a teaming partner, you on your end and your teaming partner, you have to develop this here specifically for your own company. But how will the two companies work together from a pricing model? So let's look at that a little bit. So I'm going to look at this here from I'm going to use an example here. So there's two companies. Two companies are going to work together. So there's the prime company A and the subcontractor company B. Assuming and so this has to do with rides, like transportation services. So this example here, the 100 total rides, this could be, you can change it to 100 total amount of the work. 51 number rides or 49 rides, this could be 51% of the work share. It could be 49% of the work share. So I broke it down that way so that it's easy for you to determine. And what I want to do here is I want to decide, okay, how do I set this up so that I'm going to be the subcontractor. The prime is, all they did was they won the contract and they're managing the project. But all the work falls onto my team. I'm the subcontractor. We're going to do the bulk of the work. So how do we structure this here so that it's compliant with the government and so that I can actually make the amount of money so that I can support all the heavy work on this initiative? So let's take the prime first. Assuming that each ride is $130 a ride. And again, it could be a product, it could be a service, is whatever else you want to put in here. I'm using ride as an example. So the cost per ride that we're going to bill the government is $130 per transportation. The prime is, assuming the prime is an 8A company and the subcontractor is not an 8A. The prime, by nature, typically the certified company has to do 51% of the work. So I structured 51 rides to the prime. So the prime is going to generate 51 times $130 a ride. They're going to generate $6,630. That's what they're going to generate in terms of revenue. The subcontractor, they have their own vehicles as well. And they're going to actually do 49 rides, and they're going to bill the government 6,370. Now, you actually, because both companies, you might use subcontractors, you might use, because you may not have any vans, any buses or any black cars to do the transportation. So in the scenario, you actually have a potential subcontractor, and you're going to bill the government 130, but you're actually going to pay out to do the cost. Now, if you have vans, you might have to pay your employees, you have to pay other people, right? So $70 is your hard cost to do this work here. So and then let's assume that you have to have a billing system, a ride share booking system. And so you have to pay, there's a hard cost to use the software so that they can hail a ride, or you can use the software to manage the requests for the rides. So if you deduct that there, so company A is making $6,630 for 51 rides. They have to pay out $70 to the transportation company, and they have to pay out $30 for the licensing software. Now so the company A has a remaining balance of $1,530. Now company B, because the software is their software, they provided the software, so there's no cost to them for the software because they retain that. So this is in the situation where instead of software, it could be equipment, right? Company B is the sub. The prime doesn't have any equipment. The subcontractor has the equipment. It could be dredging equipment. It could be construction equipment. It could be any type of equipment or software that is used to fulfill these rides here. So in this scenario, the company B keeps the 2,940. They also capture the 5,300 because they have the software in this example here. They have the ride share software to manage all this work here. So for every time there's a booking, they make $30 per booking as a subcontractor providing the software and managing the software and so forth. So in this scenario, the company B actually generate a net revenue of 4,470. So their revenue is this year minus this year plus the remaining revenue is this, plus they also get this year. So they actually generate a total of 4,470 of net revenue. So if you look at this here, company B, even though they're doing 49% of the actual work, they're actually capturing 74.5% of the net revenue. Net revenue, sometimes we call it net profit, right? And this is oversimplification. In some situations, this might just be gross revenue, and then you may have other costs and other things tied to it. So this is more like gross revenue versus net revenue. So this is one example. Now let's look at another scenario here. Let's assume that, so in this situation, company B does most of the heavy lifting. And company B says, we're going to split the work 51-49%. And this is how the government wants to see it. Now, in the example 2 here, the prime does all of the work. They bill the government for all of the work. So company A, which is the prime, they build 130 for 100 rides. That's 13,000. They have hard costs of $70 per ride, which is 7,000. They have the software fee that they have to pay, which is provided by company subcourt B. And so that's a cost to them. And then they have the subcontractor, and they're using a subcontractor to help manage and do some of the work. And so company A, because all they did was won the contract, manage the work, and then leveraging the subcontractor to do all the heavy lifting. So this situation, company A, they have a remaining revenue of 1,500. Company B, they don't bill the government anything, right? They got 0% of the rights, but they actually capture the revenue from the software. They also capture revenue from managing having the program manager or the supervisor or the whoever that is supporting the work itself. So they're making $15 per ride because they're actually handling all the work. They're on the phone, making sure that the ride is set up, making sure that the person got to their destination and all of that stuff. So in this scenario, in terms of net revenue, company B, they capture 45% of the net revenue. Company A, they capture 45% of the, they capture 1,500 of the revenues for a 25% of the net revenue, and company B actually makes 75% of the net revenue. So this is how there's 2 ways to structure this scenario here. You can do it where you split the work, or you can do it with the prime, get all of the work, and then they sub out the work as they need to. In this situation, this is more set up as a teaming. So this is more of a teaming relationship. So this option here is more teaming. This option here is direct subcontract. Now, the difference between teaming is company A needs the past performance of company B to be able to win the contract. In where the company if they have all the past performances, they don't need references. They don't need any past performance from company B. This is typically how this is set up here, is setting up through option 2. So I want to pause here because we cover quite a bit. I want to see if there's any questions. We got some more examples to look at, but I want to see if there's any questions. If you have questions, put it into the chat. Randall, thanks for joining us. And we've got other folks joining us. And so if you haven't put in your contact information, or not contact information, where your company name and where you're joining us from, let us know, where you're joining us from. So I see Web First out of Maryland joining us. So thanks for joining us. See Scott with Potomac Health Associates from Virginia. Thanks for joining us. And then we've got King Gov Connect out of Huntsville, Alabama. And we got Effie out of Vegas, Whitney out of Atlanta. And then we got many other joining us from different places. Any questions from anybody about what we've covered so far? Let's see here. No questions? Okay, I'm going to go to the other example here. So now this example here is RISE. I'm going to look at staffing, because a lot of you, you're in the staffing market. And so you have a teaming partner, and you guys go after some, what we call putting cheeks in seats, right? You're putting employees into FTEs, into government projects, and you build the government on a monthly basis, and you keep generating revenue that way. So you make money off of other people's time. And this is, whether this is software engineers or whether this is any other type of HR staffing type of projects, this would be a good example of that there. So you go and you bid on a project. Company A and company B comes together, and again, this is for teaming. So this first example is, you need both the past performance of company A and the past performance of company B to be able to win this project. And if the prime can win the project on their own, then it would be example 2 down here. If both past performances are needed from the 2 companies, then this is a better structure of how you do it. And by being able to do 49% of the workers, it gives better past performance to company B. Because if you're doing it just as a straight sub down here, all of the work is performed by company A, and company B, yeah, they're a sub, but it's not as strong as if it's structured where they actually have the direct staff to the opportunity here. All right, so 100 employees needed to be placed on, let's assume it's Homeland Security, and they need to hire some more Border Patrol people, and they're going to be contractors to your company and your teaming partner's company. So in this scenario, we're going to come in here and we're going to say, okay, what is the per year billable amount to the government? Now, keep in mind, the way we determine this 180 is using this over here, right? So if this is, I've got a Border Patrol person, I'm going to, let's just call that for simplicity, a security guard. Now they're trained a little bit different. They pay more, but it's a type of security guard position. And so I come in here and I have to say, okay, now what I want to do is I want to find out how much I'm going to pay a security guard. And let's assume I need them along the border of Texas. So it's 35 to 48. So 48, again, we take this here, we divide that by 2080 hours, right? And so if we come here using this example here, so instead of janitor, I'll put in here security guard. 1912 hours. I'm going to pay them 22, $23 an hour. And that gives me, I'm going to bill the government $41 an hour. And I'm going to bill the government total is 79,550 for the year. And so to me, it's revenue, but to the government, this is my billable rate. So I'll come back to this here. So instead of 180 here, I'm going to look at, so this is 79. So I'm just going to round it to 80,000 for simplicity. So I'm going to, for 51 person, and then I'm going to pay the employee, let's assume 40,000 a year. So for the prime, they're going to place 51 security guard at billing to the government 80,000. So they're going to generate 4,080,000 for the year. They're going to pay the employee 40,000 per year, plus all the other hard costs. So let's assume with all the other hard costs, that comes out to 50,000. And then company B is actually providing the HR support or some other software equipment and so forth. So company B is going to capture 15,000 per year for each person that company A provides. So the remaining revenue is, company A is going to actually keep 765,000, and company B is going to actually capture this year, and their net revenue is going to be 2.2 million. So company B is actually going to generate about 74.5% of the net revenue, and company A is going to keep 25.5% of the net revenue. Again, this is oversimplification. So this is really not net revenue. This is more so gross revenue, because you still have general administrative costs, you still have operating costs, and you still have other costs related to doing this project here. So so it's more gross revenue and versus net itself. Let's look at option 2. Option 2 is where the company prime A, they do all the work is on them, and then they just sub out management and support and from company B. So this scenario, 80,000, and then we're talking about 50,000 here. And then here we're talking about software subcontracting fee. This is 15,000. And again, this, I'm using these numbers, round numbers, as examples. Your true cost can be very different from this here. So in this example, company A, they generate $88 million in revenue, but they're actually paying out to the employees. They're paying out for all the software, the equipment, tools, vehicles that's needed for the security guard, to make sure that the security guard contract goes well. They're also using the company B, which is a subcontractor, to manage all of the work. And all they're doing is they're just doing payroll, and they won the contract. They're managing the contract. They're doing payroll. and they're leveraging their 8A certification or the STVSB certification to be the prime. The revenue to the A is 500,000. Revenue to B is 83,000. So, and again, you still have hard costs and other costs related to this. But this is an example. Questions about this here, these pricing model here. Now, this is oversimplification for illustration purposes. The way you actually develop your pricing is to actually use this here, right? This is how you actually develop your pricing. So you use this here to develop your pricing. So this is our security guard. And I need 1. If I need 100, or if I need 10, it would change, right? Then, and I'm paying here, then all of these here are pre-calculated into the calculator here. And then this is how you're going to do this here. So if assuming I need 2, it's going to change my total, billable, because now I'm taking it times it by 2 here. So when you change the number over here, it changes your overall price. So let's assume I need 15 here, or it changes to this here. If I need security guard, I need 20 security guard. Now I'm billing the government 1.4 million for the year. Now, if you want to do this here you want to understand how to do this on a monthly basis, assuming that your total base year 1 base, option year 1, option year 2, option year 3, option year 4. So your total contract value for 5 years, 16 million. And then you break it into monthly here, is your 3 million for the year, but you're billing 256 for each month. And it goes over, increases by 3% over time. 3%, 2.5% to 3% is the normal inflation rate. So that's really what we're looking at here. We're looking at inflation rate of about 3%. Now, you can structure it a little higher because inflation rate has been 8, 10, 15% in previous years. But you don't want to do it because that's not normal, right? That's because we're recovering from the pandemic, and the government put out a lot of funding and a lot of different things, and costs change because of current market dynamics. But under normal situation, it's going to be about 2.5%, 3% per year for inflation rate adjustment, and that's why it goes up per year here. So with that, we are going to wrap up today's. I'll take a few minutes to see if there's any questions about any of the pricing here. Feel free to use these models here to help you to develop pricing strategy with your teaming partners. And when you meet with your teaming partner, you can say, hey, this is the idea of how I envision us doing it. And then you can change all this here to fit your situation. All right, so let's see here. We have one question. What if when the contract for 1 year with an option to renew up to 4 years, can you add the inflation rate, or do they want the same rate? You add the inflation rate the same way I structure it here. So this is year 1 is 804,000. And then you take 804,000 times it by 2.5 plus, the 804. So that gets you to 824. So option year 1 is going to go higher by 2.5%. So you do want to include the increase. You want to increase every year. Why? Because your money is worth less next year because of inflation. So you have to increase your rates so that you're not losing profit. Imagine losing profit 2.5, and then by the end of 5 years, you actually lost 10% of your margins. That's your profit there. So you do absolutely want to include 2.5 for inflation adjustment. All right, so I think there's no more questions. So really appreciate all of you joining us for this week here. Next week, I will be doing my civic duty, just like I did my civic duty previously. I went to vote. And then next week, I have my other civic duty, which is I have jury duty. So I will not be here. So we will not have a session next week. And so use that time to do other things. And then
you have another question. You have another question.
Okay. All right. So Maria asked, do you recommend to both businesses to use a similar pricing model when teaming up? You can use whatever pricing model you want to use, and they can use whatever pricing model they want to use. Some companies, if it's two small businesses, I would recommend using the same model. That's my suggestion. If you're working with a large company and you're a sub to a large company, they're not going to disclose their pricing to you. Large company normally don't want to disclose their pricing to small businesses, and so in that situation, you develop your own pricing. They have to develop their own pricing. But if you're working with small business, my goal is always to create trust, right? You create trust by being open and working in a very transparent manner, and say, hey, let's work to make sure that our pricing works for both our companies. And pricing is public anyways, right? Because you remember I showed you in GSA, the rates are public, and so it doesn't really matter. So just work in an open manner, it will be totally fine. Can you have a copy of the last spreadsheet? Yes, the spreadsheets are the links. I think that both links are available. Our show producer already put the links in there.
It's in the chat.
Yeah, it's in the chat, and you can just click on it and then make a copy for yourself, for your own use. With that, I will see you guys in 2 weeks, and we've got a lot of other awesome things to talk about. And so we will see you then, and stay safe. Remember, you are one contract away, and it doesn't matter if your candidate won or your candidate did not win. We don't think blue or red here, right? As a government contractor, you think green. How do you adjust your business so regardless of which administration is in office, you're going to make money? And so that's really the approach as a government contractor. I will see you another time. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.